Welcome to Thinktech on OC16, Hawaii's weekly newscast on things that matter to tech and to Hawaii. I'm Duke Oishi.
And I'm Maria Kashem.
As travel, tech, and telecom get more sophisticated, our world gets smaller, and it becomes all the more important that we keep in touch with events and sea changes, not only in the Far East, but everywhere.
Thinktech, therefore, wants to expand its horizons from Asia in review to what we call West of Asia, all the way Far East to the Middle East, to keep current on what's going on around the world that might affect Hawaii.
As we saw in the incident in Libya, uploading an objectionable video onto YouTube in the US makes it instantly available worldwide. As we have seen, this allows for violent misunderstandings and deadly surprises.
Before, we had come to feel that every part of the U.S. is connected. In our Asia in Review series, we have explored the connection of Hawaii and the U.S. with Asia.
And in only a few years, the connection with Asia has expanded beyond the major East Asian nations of China, Japan, and Korea to a host of others, from the Russian Far East to India, Pakistan, and beyond.
Indeed, our horizon here in Hawaii continues to expand west, beyond Far East Asia to Central Asia, and increasingly all the way to the Middle East. And our world is connected, instantly, all the way around. We can hardly afford to ignore it.
Events in Central Asia affect the military commands headquartered in Hawaii. Events in the Middle East affect the price of oil, and in turn the cost and safety of air travel, and so far, directly or indirectly, every aspect of our tourism and our consumer economy.
As the world gets smaller, all these places from Asia to the Middle East become more interdependent. We need to study that interdependence and compare the Far East with the Middle East to see what is to be learned in one and of value in the other.
Tonight, we want to take a look at that part of Thinktech Hawaii that studies Asia, to review what we've been covering there over the past few years, and to consider the expansion of the coverage going forward.
First, let's take a look at some of our favorite Asia in Review issues and interviews.
We've done regular pieces on China, Japan, and the Koreas, and we've expanded our coverage to the Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, Tibet, Nepal, and so many other countries and cultures, all connected in one way or the other to Hawaii.
It's only natural that this coverage move west, following and comparing events and transitions in Asia with those in Central Asia, and for that matter, all the way to the Middle East, which I suppose you could say is the far west of the East.
We have David Day, one of our regular Thinktech Asia in Review hosts, with us here to talk about this growing connection to the west of Asia, and how we hope to explore it for you here on Thinktech.
You take community to a larger level, to a higher degree when you talk international. You take the same principles that you're talking here locally to a higher level. And so what do you tell these kids about their role in international affairs? So what do you tell them that they should go to Asia? You know, go west, young man. Do you tell them they should start a business in Asia? Do you tell them to make friends in Asia and make connections? Do you tell them that Hawaii's destiny is to be the bridge, to act as a special channel between the United States and Asia?
Yeah. I tell them the same thing that I have been talking about, that it's people who make the difference. And those of us who are here, the people of Hawaii, if we can reach out in various ways, in whatever our interest may be, whether it's business or just social contacts, or whether or not we get interested in some activity that's happening, it's the people who can express this kind of interest that brings people together. And I think that's the future of internationalism. I think that it's from that will come people, I want to do some business. I made a contact with a person, and I think I want to talk to that person about doing a certain kind of business. And so you have an international business that gets started. You have people who give you some ideas about what's happening there. Oh, it can happen right here in Hawaii.
You know, Hawaii is a special place, you know, because of its polyglot, you know, and racial diversity and many other things. Do you think that Hawaii is better qualified, that people who have grown up here or who understand what Hawaii is are better qualified to deal on this people-to-people basis?
We don't give credit to our people. I think that's true. I think our people, you think man for man or woman for woman, this person here and any other person anywhere else, I think that in terms of the understanding of international affairs, the need for us to be more international, the things that we need to do to retain this international relationship, I think the person in Hawaii can stand up to any person elsewhere.
What should I do to follow that trail?
For one thing, it's to understand that if you try to do something only in the island, keep it here, that's all you're going to be, some activity that's kept here. But if the idea is good, you got to think about having more people understand that and participating also. So once you start doing that, then you begin to feel, and you become internationalist. You begin to feel that it's not only you, it's not only your community, but greater community. And especially in a place like Hawaii, where we are right in the middle of the Pacific. Not in the center, but in the Pacific. And we have the United States on one side and Asia on the other side. We can help bring both sides together.
Next, we have an interview with former Pacific Forum CSIS fellow Dr. Kevin Shepard. Let me take you back to a shelling incident that occurred on one of the Korean islands, Yeonpyeon. Why can't the South Koreans seriously retaliate? They have military assets, they have the backing of the United States. Why didn't they take out these two bases?
They may have, and that's the one shining hope left out there, is that those shells fired immediately after the North, those retaliatory strikes,
Okay.
may have damaged those bases. I would hope that they did.
Okay, let's assume that they did not.
The reason that we can't step back, call meetings, come up with a plan, and go back in, because one, that would just be a huge boost to North Korean propaganda, because it would look like our strike on North Korea.
Really worked. It was successful, we scared them. Something like that?
Well, no, the North Koreans would say, look, see, we've been telling you for 60 years that America is out to get us, that South Korea is trying to attack us. And that propaganda would help to justify their military first politics, would help to justify their dictatorial politics, this whole Kim family-centered
Sure.
regime.
And holding the country on in a unified, whipped into a war frenzy.
Right, and any socialist economy and communist government needs an outside threat. They run on crisis.
Okay. Okay.
And North Korea always has to create crisis, whether it's actual crisis or whether it's just through propaganda that the imperialistic international community is out to get us, and we have to stick together and we have to fight for this, because in the end we're going to reach this utopia. That's how this whole government is structured, which is probably one part of this shelling, is to further sharpen this threat to North Korea, because now North Korea says regularly tensions have been raised. When you have drills, tensions have been raised, and now we're on the brink of war. And this is internal propaganda as well.
Okay. Okay.
So we would just, for one, we would help to legitimize that by striking. Two, if it got to the point, if we don't understand North Korea entirely, we don't know what would trip that switch that would lead to escalation. And if it did, if this type of skirmish escalated, South Korea has much, much more to lose than North Korea does.
Well, so let's suppose that we reach that hypothetically. Why couldn't the combination of the South Korean armed forces and the U.S. military just shut down North Korea's retaliatory response without damage? Why couldn't they do that?
Well, they could do that with, well, they could never shut it down entirely, because North Korea is bunkered in. Their sites are dug into mountains. Their guns are rolled back into man-made caves. A preemptive strike on North Korea, we're not convinced, we being the South Korean and U.S. officials, of which I'm not one, so I shouldn't say we, but
Okay, that's all right.
the general understanding is that because they are so hardened, these targets are so hardened, we would not be able to take out enough of them to prevent retaliation if we were to launch a preemptive strike.
Preemptive strike.
If North Korea struck first, we would know exactly where these rounds came from.
Okay.
Our radars and our satellites would tell us exactly where their gun positions are, and we would be able to take out most of them. But so they wouldn't be able to fire volley after volley after volley after volley.
Okay. So what you're saying is they get off if the North Koreans move first in a serious attack, they get off a series of volleys.
They get off enough rounds to destroy Seoul.
Next, moving west into China, we have Ms. Yang Yi from Pacific Forum. And as you're going to learn throughout the course of this program, Ms. Yang is an extraordinary expert on the topic of social media in China. And even beyond that, one of the things that I've noticed is that she really is a incredible visionary about where social media is likely to take China. I'm dying to ask you this question now. Okay, so here it is. All right, we've talked about social media all along here. Do you think that the social media will bring something like an Arab Spring to China?
Because I heard there is an article saying that nowadays, I think you mentioned this to me as well, nowadays not Arab Spring anymore, it's Arab Winter.
Or the Arab Winter, yeah.
So
okay,
Arab Winter or Arab Spring is not a good thing for China. And I don't see the much similarities between the two cases.
Why is that?
Because the domestic policies are so different. I mean, most of the people in China still enjoy the achievement of the economic success
Okay.
in past 3 decades. Although there are some problems like wealth gap, like corrupted officials always happens. But most of people, the living standard for them are improved dramatically, and they are satisfied with that part.
Okay.
So fundamentally, they don't want to change. Chinese people want to solve their urgent economic, social issues with the current government.
Okay. And that's totally different than in the Middle East,
That's
where you had
fundamental different.
unemployment and young people had no opportunity and that kind of thing.
Yes. So and Chinese people and the government, they have agreement about the priority of economic development and the social stability. That's both sides wants to, and they have agreement on that.
So maybe your perspective is, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but let me try this on you, is that contrasting with the Arab Winter, maybe social media will, in a positive, stable way, gently evolve China into more of a Chinese Spring rather than an Arab Winter.
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yes, and I think Chinese Spring China will become more representative, and the social media also will help the government to improve their legitimacy of governance. So it's kind of have a win-win.
Okay.
It's creates a very constructive platform to lead to a win-win situation in the end. So in general, I think social media is a good thing, and the government kind to learn how to play with it and to get what they want.
Finally, moving further west, here is Dr. Hassan Arari talking a little bit about the explosion in the Middle East. As we look around the globe at this moment in time, we see, 21, 27 of the Arab or Muslim countries imploding or exploding with riots, anti-American hatred. And so your point is that, this was Osama bin Laden's big dream, is if he could cause this kind of chaos.
Well, not that he caused that kind of chaos, that chaos is happening, and because the chaos is happening, it is the fulfillment of his dream.
Well said. And what in your mind, what is what's at the root of all this anti-American hatred in the Arab countries?
You have a conflict between Islam and the United States. You have the Palestinian question related conflict. You have the conflict related to Arabs' anger about America's support of dictatorship, and you have a lot of disappointment, not anger, disappointment related to President Obama's Cairo speech that he gave.
Wait, hold on one second now. You said there was a conflict between Islam and the U.S., and then there is a lot of disappointment in the Arab countries about over President Obama and the Cairo speech. How do we link those two together, or provide our audience with a little bit of background on that?
They're not directly linked, but these are lingering reasons. These are lingering reasons in the background. Obama's promise in Cairo. When President Obama came to office, he raised a lot of expectations, a lot of hopes about the so-called dialogue between civilizations.
Right, and
that dialogue never materialized. And as I was mentioning to you yesterday, the main reason for that was not America's antipathy toward Islam, but that's how it's read. The main reason for that is America's objectives in the Middle East or anywhere else are extremely complex. They are not very, very static. They're going to be dynamic. The United States is going to focus on South Asia today, Central Asia tomorrow, Trans-Saharan region of Africa day after tomorrow. Depending upon where the trouble is, the United States is going to focus on that. So that becomes, so see, that doesn't really solve problems. That enables the United States to perhaps come up with some Band-Aid kind of solution.
Hassan, what you're saying is that the 2009 Cairo speech of President Obama raised the expectations in the Arab world, which were never the level of engagement and dialogue which that speech anticipated never occurred.
Right.
And that has led to an increase. It's like pouring gasoline on the flames.
Not necessarily, but that is one of the lingering reasons. You see, I hate to establish direct links, between especially the United States' inability to fulfill aspirations. Now, one reason that is causing a lot of problem for us is America's regular and constant failure to resolve the Palestinian question, and that I would say that has become as far west as you go, toward Indonesia, you will see that they'll mention first and foremost problem between the United States and the Muslim world, they'll say, is its failure to resolve the Palestinian.
What you're saying as an expert on Islamic radicalism, as long as the Palestinian issue is not resolved, then this anti-American hatred or sentiment in the Arab countries and on into the Muslim countries in our region of the world, into Malaysia, Indonesia, is going to continue.
Oh, absolutely.
Hawaii, at the crossroads of Asia-Pacific, must look to the west. Stay with us as we extend our horizon and bring you news and comment about places west of Asia that are of interest to Hawaii. Much more to come, raising public awareness here on Thinktech.
Again, more from David Day.
The reach for Asia in Review is now expanding beyond the Far East. As the world becomes smaller and the issues become linked with each other, it's important that we expand our coverage from our traditional areas in the Asian continent further west to include Pakistan and Afghanistan and on into the Middle East. The reason that this expansion of coverage out into the Middle East is important for Hawaii is because many of the issues involved in the Middle East are now becoming linked into the Asia-Pacific region. We can see this through demonstrations that have erupted in Kabul today and in Jakarta, and as well as involvement of the Asian countries in Afghanistan and Pakistan. We hope this coverage will be helpful for you. It's part of Thinktech's mission to illuminate the bridge onto Asia, and now onto Asia points west.
And now, Duke, let's take a look at our Thinktech calendar of events going forward.
Thinktech's 4 to 5 p.m. drive time radio series on KGU 760 AM continues this week. Tune in on Wednesdays for Tech with Jay Fidel, Thursdays for Asia in Review with David Day, and find out Fridays with Jennifer Dotson and Mildred Schwartz, and raise your awareness on Thinktech Radio.
And on October 25th, we'll be presenting a program we call How Much Tech is Going On at UH, and Is It Enough? Don't forget to sign up for these programs on hbca.org.
And now here's Bill Spencer, president of the Hawaii Venture Capital Association, with this week's Spensation.
One of the tricks in Iran's bag is to close down the Straits of Hormuz, which carries 35% of the world's oil. And as a result, in anticipating that, the U.S. and I think Britain also began to assemble a fairly large, powerful armada in the Straits of Hormuz a few days ago. And that is to protect against any action by Iran to close it down. So there's a confrontation going on in the Straits of Hormuz right now. You know, the issue is why does Hawaii care? I mentioned this to one fellow, and he said, well, you know, why would we care? We don't get our oil through the Straits of Hormuz anyway. Even if we don't get our oil through the Straits of Hormuz, it's going to have an effect on price and availability of oil all over the world if the Straits of Hormuz are somehow blocked. Then you begin thinking that this could happen, either this time or another time. It could happen, and Hawaii would be at great risk. You know, we talk about clean energy, but we're still using oil.
That's right.
Clean energy is into the future. I think 90% of our energy still comes from oil. And do people realize that we have really got to get off oil? We've got to become self-reliant. You know, as an island community, 2,500 miles from the nearest, help, essentially, we really have to become self-reliant. Only way to do that is local companies using local renewable sources. And I don't for the life of me understand why people jump ship on that issue all the time. There's so many people pulling off that, don't want to care about it anymore. They cared about it in 2008, but they don't care about it now. The Clean Energy Initiative has transmuted itself into the Cheap Energy Initiative. And all you hear now is, we got to have cheap energy. People forgot about the self-reliance thing. They forgot about climate change. They forgot about the reasons for the initiative in the first place. How short our memories are.
That's parallel to economic diversification.
Yes, exactly.
As soon as tourism picks up, which it is right now, we forget about diversifying the economy.
Yes.
All is rosy when Waikiki hotels are full.
Yes.
So it's the same kind of short-term thinking that's going to continue to plague us if we don't organize our priorities better.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to be Chicken Little,
Sky is
the
falling.
sky is falling. But if something does happen in Iran, if something happens in the Straits of Hormuz, or other things, who knows? The world is so interconnected. We are going to feel it immediately. I don't think people realize what a real blackout is like when the ship doesn't come in and there is no oil. Renewables can't carry it. Half a ship can't carry it. You've got to have sufficient fuel to run the system. And we have 1 million plus people, 1.3 in the state now. We aren't going to be able to run things very well. We're not going to be able to run away either. We're going to be locked in our own failure to be self-reliant. What do we do about it? People don't seem to get the message that an island community has to really focus on self-reliance more than somebody on the continent.
Well, I agree, and I think that's where, again, the priorities have to be shuffled. There's a little talk about food sustainability, food security, but just like everything else, we import it.
We have to find a way to regenerate the concern that existed in 2008 about energy and also the concern about food. locally grown food. We're not growing really much of anything.
Not much.
And we're certainly not doing open ocean aquaculture either.
Not yet.
Not
Will be
yet.
soon.
Yeah, well, soon. You know, it's a race against time.
We'll be right back to wrap up this week's edition of Thinktech. But first, we want to thank our underwriters.
Thanks to the Scheidler Family Foundation, which supports a number of educational, cultural, and charitable organizations, including Thinktech.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Miko on Maui and Helco on the Big Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company, and CEO of CBI Polymers, a tech company in Hawaii.
The High Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Okay, Maria. That wraps up this week's edition of Thinktech. Remember, you can watch Thinktech on OC16 several times every week. Can't get enough of it, just like Jay Fidel does. For additional times, check out oc16.tv.
You bet, Duke! For lots more Thinktech videos and for underwriting and sponsorship opportunities on Thinktech on OC16, visit thinktechhawaii.com. Be a sponsor or a volunteer and help us reach Hawaii.
I'm Duke Oishi. Thanks so much for joining us on Thinktech. You can watch this show throughout the week and tune in next Sunday evening for our next important weekly episode. Aloha, everyone.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time!